Hello, everyone, and welcome back. So, what's on tap for today? Well, we've got a video of the debate between Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks, who I affectionately call the Young Jerks, and Tucker Carlson. So, let's get into that, and we'll do that in just the next few seconds. But before we do so, we just want to let you know you're watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I'm your guest host for today. My name is Dr. Nasir. We would love you to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, like, share, and follow us. Comment below. Let us know what you think about the debate and our comments and our reaction to it. Let's get to the debate right now.
To some of the core challenges in our country, and that is on the topic of immigration and the group of migrants who are coming to the U.S. border. About 5,000 migrants are on their way, and we've heard President Trump make statements saying that they will not be allowed in. Obviously, it's a major humanitarian crisis, and so I want to start with Tucker. How do we address this situation of people who are definitely suffering a lot, but also don't have visas to come in? How do we start to approach this situation?
Well, I mean, you have to create a hierarchy of imperatives. First of all, thanks so much for having me. I'm really glad to be here and in a room full of people who don't live in Washington with someone smart to talk to. And I'm going to really try to be as sort of civil and polite as I can, and maybe my mind will be changed, because in this world things are changing so fast. Why wouldn't your mind change? So maybe you can change my mind. I would say on the question of this group of migrants coming north, the one that came 3 months ago coming north, the 22 million who are currently living here illegally, it's all sort of species of the same question, which is the first question. I mean, there are many questions, and one of them is, how do you help other people? And a lot of smart people run NGOs are thinking about that in Washington, and some are doing a good job, others are not. But the main question the U.S. government has to answer is, how do we enforce our laws voted on democratically by our Congress? And how do we protect our people, the people to whom we have really the only duty that we have, right? I mean, the purpose of the government is to protect you and to help you. And again, I'm a Christian, and I think I'm a person of not particularly good faith, but decent faith, okay? So I'm always sort of for helping people, but the government's job is to represent the voters and enforce the laws that they sent their representatives to Washington to pass. And that's kind of all their job is, actually. So our law says that you need permission to come into this country, and that is the law of every country that is a country. And without that, you're sort of not a country. So, I mean, you could ask the obvious question, which is, there are an awful lot of poor people around the world. Does everyone have a right to come here and go on Medicaid? I don't know. I mean, if you think so, let's speak slowly so I can understand, and let's talk it through. And tell me why. Where does that obligation come from exactly? Is it written in the Constitution? Is it in the Bible? What exactly are you saying? But you're not hearing that. Instead, you're hearing an awful lot of the kind of moral bullying that has come to characterize all of our political conversations, where the person you're debating, in this case I'm debating, begins with the presumption of, I'm a better person than you. I care more deeply for these people than you do, and if you were a good person, you would agree with me. Well, I mean, that's a theological debate. And I reserve a huge part of Sundays for those. But that's not really a public policy debate. There isn't much of a public policy debate here. Our laws are as they are, and if you want to change them, send representatives to Washington to do that, and maybe we're about to see that happen. But there's a massive cost to any government saying, because of political pressure, temporary political pressure, we're going to ignore our own laws. Then why can't I ignore the law? I pay way more taxes than I feel like paying. There are all kinds of things that I would like to ignore. So I'm not really sure what the debate is, to be totally blunt with you, other than the virtue debate, which is not interesting.
Let's go to Cenk here.
Before we get that, I think Tucker just put that very succinctly, very precisely. He put it out there and said, look, are we going to be, the world's doormat? There are a lot of places around the world. There are millions, there are billions of people that are suffering, billions of people that are hurting, billions of people that are in worse conditions than one could ever imagine. And they're all over the world. So what makes it okay for these people that just because they're on the southern border and they're coming up, why can they come over illegally? What's the reason for that? And he basically says, he's a charitable person. He wants to do what's right. But is that the job of the government, or is the job of the government to help Americans first and to protect the borders and to make sure that people follow laws? That's really all that, he's saying. Now, let's hear what Cenk has to say in reply to that. And it's Tucker was saying, it's not a racist question, but the presumption, he says, every time you talk to somebody about something like this, what do you get from the social justice warriors? What do you get from the wokesters? What do you get from the media? Hey, I'm up here on my high perch sitting there, and you guys are way down here. And I'm much better than you are. I'm more religious than you are. I care about these people more. I'm a deeply caring person. You're not. You're not religious. You don't give a damn about people. You're racist. You're bigoted. You're this. You're that. You're whatever. But we are so virtuous. We are so pious. We're so high and mighty up here. We're good people and you're not. That's basically what happens. That's where the conversation boils down to. Let's see what Cenk has to say.
Yeah. All right, so let's break it down. And backstage, we had far too much agreement, so let's break that up. So, first of all, on the caravan, I feel like Fox News, from time to time, touches on it, but overall misleads. And I'll tell you why, Tucker. It makes it sound like the caravan's going to come in and bust through a gate of some sort and then go ravaging in the country. Well, the reality is, the reason they're in a caravan is because they're seeking asylum. So if they wanted to sneak into the country, they wouldn't do it in a giant caravan. So, and so when you're talking about the laws, there are also laws in place on how to seek asylum. And that is exactly what they're following. So that caravan actually, in a way, should be celebrated because they are not going to cross the border illegally. They are going to go to a port where you ask for asylum. Now, Donald Trump is suggesting that we should reject asylum out of hand without talking to people. Now, that is not the law, and that is not the American way. And so, and Tucker, I don't want you to take this the wrong way. I'm not trying to compare you or Fox News or anybody to this. I'm just giving an extreme example of what happens when you don't listen to people. So we've done that in the past. In the 1930s and 40s, Jews came here on boats asking for asylum, and we sent them back. And one particular ship that came to Florida that was sent back, 25% of those people were murdered in a concentration camp. And God knows what happened to the other 75%. There's sometimes a good reason to hear them out. And what we're asking for is something very simple, and that is within the law, hear them out. It's not too much to ask for.
So, all right, so Cenk basically, again, now a lot of times people throw in the Nazi metaphors, then people throw in the Jewish metaphors, then people throw in whatever other people's plights metaphor there are. So Cenk is basically saying that, look, he's looking at it from an asylum point of view. Well, you know what? That's fine and good in a way if you want to think about it. But the reason that these folks have an easy way, and I mean easy is relative in terms of seeking asylum, is because they are able to cross on foot or whatever caravan, whatever means of transportation those guys are using to come to the United States. But they're able to do that because of the landmass that's available. They have the ground beneath their feet that they can move. Immigration, you vote with your feet, legal or illegal. And they're using their feet. They're using a caravan to come forward. So the asylum is good for all those people from Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, all these other places. But what about all the people that want to seek asylum that are, like, say, in the Middle East, in Iraq, in Iran, in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, in China, in other countries, in sub-Saharan, in Africa? What about those places? Bosnia, Ukraine, Russia, any place out there. Third world countries, fourth world countries. Where do they go for seeking asylum? Are they to be, they can't be rewarded because of where they are in terms of geographical boundaries? Is that what we're talking about? Because they just happen to have to cross a body of water or they're thousands and thousands of miles away and they can't reach the shores of the United States of America, so they're punished because of geographical boundaries? I mean, this is unbelievable. I don't know really who won the debate. I mean, there's going to continue, obviously, on this immigration. But right now, I don't think there was a clear winner. They stated their positions and they came through. I think Tucker had a point, basically saying government's job is to basically help the United States citizens and protect our borders and protect U.S. citizens first. I don't think this is an asylum issue. It's a protection and border issue. So on that, I would probably give a little bit to Tucker. Let's continue.
I'll let the whole Nazi reference go unremarked upon. But I would say, look, if I have one criticism of Americans is they haven't traveled enough. And I know you have traveled a lot. And one thing you learn when you travel is there are a lot of really hurting parts of the world. So nothing that is happening in Guatemala right now, or Honduras or Salvador, is unique to those countries, or even to Central America, Latin America, or even this hemisphere. That kind of thing is happening all over the world, where for a bunch of different reasons, most of them political, millions upon millions, billions, in fact, of people are suffering and desperate. And of course, my heart goes out to all of them. The question is, what duty does the U.S. government have to them?
Yes.
And I would argue it doesn't have a duty to them, okay? It has a duty to its own people. Now, that's not, again, I think people of goodwill have a lot they can do to help those people, okay? I do think that. But the government is something very different. And I would also argue that there is a cost to this, a cost that the left used to recognize. It was once obvious. So I grew up in this state, in Southern California, and Cesar Chavez was a hero. I mean, we have a day in California dedicated to his memory. And Cesar Chavez, among many other things, he was a serious leftist, an economic leftist, he was a socialist. But among many other things, he was passionately, in fact, violently anti-immigration. Why? Because he was anti-Mexican? I mean, he wasn't Mexican descent, of course not. Because he led a labor union, and he understood that supply and demand is a real thing. And if you have an overabundance of anything, its value falls. That's why sand is cheap. So if you let people in from poor countries willing to work for less, your wages fall, particularly at the bottom end, among your most vulnerable. This was axiomatic on the left for 100 years. All of our anti-immigration laws were the result of lobbying from organized labor, from Democrats, because they had a responsibility to their people. And Republicans, management, the people who owned the fruit companies, who hired the pickers, were totally for unrestrained immigration, legal and illegal, because it made their labor costs lower. So I would only say, and it's a more complicated question than just this, but this is a huge part of it. It's one of the reasons that wages have stalled. And for some categories of people, high school educated people, they've gone down over the last 30 years. Like, this is a real thing. And the last thing I'll say is, if you bring this up, everyone wants to make a race question out of it. You don't like them because they're different. Oh, please. There's nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with what kind of country you want to live in. Do you want to live in a country where people with very little economic power have even less? Then open the doors, and that's what you'll get.
All right, so a lot to respond to there. So let's break it down one by one. First of all, this is a country, and this is not a cliche, it's true, this is a country made of immigrants. I'm an immigrant, and I came in a legal way. So, and I want to support that, and I think that that's not a matter of doing me a favor. It's not a matter of doing someone from Honduras a favor. It's a matter of what is best for the country. And I think immigrants have built this country, whether they were Italian, Irish, Chinese, Jewish, and Mexican. Yes, they have built this country. And so I think that is a great value to the country. In fact, there is demagoguery about how immigrants keep taking from us. But the reality is, and every study shows this, since a lot of the undocumented immigrants pay into Social Security and Medicare as part of the payroll taxes, but never get it out, they actually put more taxes into the system than they take out of the system.
I just have to stop right here, basically, and say that when Cenk basically says that, immigration, they put more into the system than take out, that's absolutely wrong. So what does that mean? If they put more into the system, then what we should be basically doing is, hey, the whole world come to the United States of America, and you can put so much more into the Social Security system. You can put so much into the system, paying more taxes and whatever. That's the best thing. That's completely wrong what Cenk is saying. Okay, they're paying their taxes, they're doing whatever they're doing, they're putting in the system. But look in terms of schooling, healthcare, other costs that are affiliated with this, in terms of just the, just in terms of where they are getting benefits. In many cases, they are getting Medicare benefits, they are getting welfare benefits. They are doing that thing, and this whole thing there. And how much money are they, sending back to their countries to help there? Instead of spending that money here, stimulating the economy here, they're sending it back to their home countries. Don't tell me this thing here.
And so if we're talking about what is the correct policy to have, so there is a discussion about reform in Congress that's gone nowhere, but the idea there was to take indentured servitude and double it. And that if you work here for 14 years, if you're undocumented, you could have a pathway to citizenship. Now, the right wing said that's too lenient. I don't know if they want 3 times indentured servitude. I don't know. But my answer is, look, can we at least go back to indentured servitude? So for 7 years, they work and they pay their dues. Have they not done enough and shown enough to become U.S. citizens? That means they are adding to our country. They are not taking away from our country. So that is a proposal that I believe in and that I will fight for. And immigrants are net positive in almost every way imaginable, and also demagoguery on the issue of criminality. The reality is native-born Americans, unfortunately, commit crime at over twice the rate of undocumented immigrants. So if we're going to kick anyone out, it would be us. Well, not me, because I wasn't born here. But of course we're not going to do that either, because we all work together and we can win together. Now, in terms of wages, Tucker is absolutely right that wages have been stagnant. And they have been stagnant since...
Before we continue with the wages, again, here's the argument one more time. Oh, it's Americans that are committing all the crimes, the rapes, the murders, the burglaries, the assaults, all this stuff. And it's not the illegal aliens that are doing it. Listen, you can play around with statistics and you can get them to basically say or, manipulate them in a way that they favor you when you're talking. So putting statistics aside for right now, the only thing I want to say is this. If an American citizen is committing a crime, they were legal to be here. That's a whole different thing to talk about. We need, obviously, the laws are there to not do those things, but people will break the laws, and they do that all the time. But at least they were legally allowed to be here in this country. And then once they commit those acts of crime, once they commit those misdemeanors or felonies, and once they're caught and brought to justice, and they're sent to jail, whatever, they will serve their time for their crime. But the question I would like to ask Cenk is that if you have an illegal alien that crossed over here illegally and he commits a crime, we allowed him to come in here. The blood of what that person has done, the act that he's committed, the murder, the rape, the assault, whatever it is, the kidnapping, the brutality, whatever it is, the gangs, we've allowed that to happen when it never should have occurred in the first place. They never should have been allowed to be here to begin with. So for them to commit an act of a criminal act here in the United States, they were doing it because we allowed them to be here when they shouldn't have been over here in the first place. So don't give me this crap about statistics. I don't give a damn about the statistics. They shouldn't have been here in the first place to commit the act. That's the problem. That's where the government failed to protect its citizens.
This about 1978. Productivity has not. The American worker has been wonderfully productive. It has gone up by over 200% since that time. But if you're looking to see who took your wages, don't look down, look up. The guy, just last thought here, the guy who walked in and crossed the border without a penny to his name did not somehow rig the rules. No, the person who rigged the rules are the ones that are paying the politicians. Campaign contributions are unadulterated bribery. They're absolutely, positively bribery. and they are done to maintain power for the economic elite. And that is what's keeping your wages stagnant.
Well, I kind of, let me just say, I kind of agree with some of that, unexpectedly, but I think you're right. I mean, I don't blame really immigrants for anything. As people, the policies are not formulated by them. The question is who benefits from our current system, which is clearly totally dysfunctional. If you have 20 million or 22 million, north of 20 million people without papers in your country, it's clearly not working. So the question is who's benefiting from that. And there's an entire political party that hopes to sort of have a new voter base on the basis of those people. And you have, that's true, as you know. And I don't think anyone's hiding it, by the way. And if you're for that party, I mean, I guess you're for that. And then there are also, and I think you alluded to this, a lot of employers who are benefiting from that. But,
So to clear this thing up, what Tucker is talking about is that there's two reasons why both political parties on this are completely guilty. And both political parties have the blood on their hands of U.S. citizens being killed by these illegal aliens that are coming across the border, obviously illegally. So that blood is on the hands of Congress, it's on the hands of the presidents, it's on the hands of administration, it's on the hands of the, it's on the hands of every part of government, obviously. Now, what Tucker here is saying is that the reasons for the parties wanting illegal aliens here are different. Well, obviously, the Democrats, they want illegal aliens here because guess what? They're hoping that eventually there will be some path to citizenship, and because they showed them all kinds of goodies and freebies and we'll give you everything that you want, and we're the ones that are fighting for you over the rights of United States citizens, even though you're illegals over here, they'll decide to vote Democrat. And the Republicans on their side is because of companies and corporations or whatever, they're basically saying, well, if illegal aliens are here, guess what? We can keep our costs down, our manufacturing costs down, our productive costs down, our wages we can, we don't have to pay as much or whatever. So it's in that regard, it will help us in terms of our productivity and economics. So those are the two camps. Anyways, let's continue with Tucker.
by the way, you're also right that a lot of immigrants are in fact exploited. I mean, we've created an entire serf class to serve the day-to-day needs of the rich. Like, that's just true. And by the way, if you want to see the most intense opponents of changing or fixing our immigration system, talk to like some of your rich people in my neighborhood. And it's like, well, who's going to walk the dogs while I'm at Soul Cycle? Like, I'm serious. And they have we're doing that. And most people are not benefiting. Only a small number is benefiting. So, look, I would agree with a lot of what you said, or certainly the tenor of what you said. It's not their fault. But it does get to a core question, which is, do you, as a U.S. citizen, have the right to have any voice at all in who comes in? Because demographics is like one of the key questions. Who lives here? Again, not a racial question. It's a substantive factual question. And I don't think you'll find many people in this country who are opposed to immigration. We have more immigrants, aggregate, total immigrants than any country's ever had in peacetime, ever, okay? And you don't have riots in the streets. You don't have lunatics. Lots of other countries do. South Africa right now, killing Zimbabweans because they're mad about unchecked immigration. I get it. We don't have that. We like immigrants. The question is, are we allowed to make the decision? It's our country, and in that our, I would include lots of naturalized immigrants, including you. We all have a right to decide. And so to say it's anti-immigrant, look, I'm for dinner parties. I have lots of dinner parties. I love inviting 12 people over to my house and having dinner. If you decided who they were, or said you're not allowed to decide who the 12 people are, that wouldn't be a dinner party, would it? It would be an invasion or something. It would be something I'm very much against. So the question is, where is the economic debate? I mean, what I appreciated about your response was and I disagree with your numbers, but at least you marshaled them. Like, what is the economic effect of this? I grew up in this state. When I grew up here, it was the richest out of 50. It had the best schools out of 50. It had the most vibrant middle class out of 50. It now it's 48th for schools. It has more poor people than any state. Its infrastructure is crumbling, and the middle class is living in Boise. So how did that happen? There are lots of reasons it happened, but the truth is, economics is not magic. Importing millions of poor people, every one of them a good person, I'm willing to assume, doesn't make you richer. So the rest of us have a right to have that conversation. That's all I'm saying. Don't shut it down with racist, please.
But Tucker, let me follow up on that.
So we're going to end this thing right here, right now. There's more in this thing. We'll do that in part 2. So look for that video as you peruse our video library or whatever. But just want to again say is that I think both of them are making their points. But again, you know where Tucker is coming from. Tucker is coming from the fact of, do we as U.S. citizens have a voice in who we allow to come into the country and how many? How many at a time? And who? And for what reasons? Is it just unchecked? Immigration legally? Separate legal immigration from illegal immigration. Legal aliens from illegal aliens. That's what he's saying. And the government has to be able to protect us. In many things, they were agreeing with a lot of things in terms of, corporations, in terms of, illegal aliens being exploited once they're over here. What's happening to wages and stagnation of wages of the workers here in the United States. How by bringing in illegal aliens, it's basically lowering those wages as well. Anytime you bring more of something, have more of something, its value goes down. Now, on the other side, Cenk is arguing from the thing of, again, virtue signaling, I think, from the point of, we're progressives. We have to be nice, the huddled masses, the Statue of Liberty. What are these people going to do? They're seeking asylum. They're doing this. They're doing that. Listen, you have to help yourself first. You help your own, in your family. You help. If you can't help your family first, how do you help others? That's the whole question. So in this thing here, I would probably, if you were on the right and, more of a conservative and on the right, you probably were saying Tucker made some great points. Obviously, if you're progressive, you're on the left, you're probably thinking Cenk made some points. All in all, I think it was probably a tie right over here. I think there were some points scored maybe here or there, but they were kind of minute. I think Tucker laid out a little better position in terms of what the government's job is and what American citizens should have some right of say-so of who comes and enters into the country, whereas Cenk was basically more, was out here basically sort of around the edges and the feel good, be good, virtue signaling type of thing, basically, in my opinion. Anyways, we appreciate you watching. This was just part 1 of the debates between Tucker Carlson and Cenk Uygur. Watch our other videos below. You've been watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I've been your guest host. My name is Dr. Nasir. Please subscribe to our channel, like, share, and follow us. Hit that notification bell. I'll leave you with my final thought, which is, when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. We'll see you again next time, folks. Take care and stay safe.